Hello guys, and welcome to a very special edition of the NGB podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, we've got some video content as well. We are talking about 2015's best and worst and everything else game of the year. So I am Ben, and I'm joined by Gary Clark.
How's it going, mate?
I'm good, and we're also joined by Mr. Asim Tambir. I think we might have been expecting that.
Yeah.
So obviously 2015 has been a pretty good year for games. I don't really think there's anyone that would argue with that. I think that the current gen consoles have really hit their stride, and there's been a lot of quality titles that have come out. What do you guys reckon?
The internet would argue with you, probably.
Well, the internet are wrong.
No, it's been a great year for games. It was fairly. I mean, there usually is a period in between where there's not much out, but for the most part, it's been consistent in terms of some big hitters have come out this year. There's been a few games that have been pushed back to next year, but for the most part, the big hitters have come out and they've come out and they've done well. So yeah, it's been a great year.
Cool. So, what we're going to do, obviously, we're going to talk about the best stuff of the year. First off, we're just going to run down the most disappointing games of the year. It's not the most positive way to start the thing off, but we'll get the bad stuff out of the way first, and we'll jump into the good games later. So, what we've done, as with all of our lists, is we've essentially collated everyone that we've got that writes for the site. We've had everybody vote, and we've taken. In terms of the games of the year stuff, we've taken a ranked list of everybody's thing, and then we've collaborated it all together. So if your favourite game hasn't made it into the list, it's a democracy. It was probably high up on someone's list, it's just not there. But
that's shit, mate.
So let's just get into it, and we'll go through what we've deemed to be the most disappointing games of the year. The first one that topped our list was FIFA 16. Now, obviously, we got hands-on at Gamescom. We also got hands-on. You guys got hands-on at E3, and it seemed like it was coming together. So the fact that it's made this list was a little bit confusing to me at first, but obviously, you guys have said some other stuff. So, what do you think?
I mean, when I reviewed it for FSB, I gave it a 7 out of 10, which I guess is disappointing. So I can see why it's made the list. I mean, we played it a lot kind of before pre-release, and EA had a base. Well, EA Sports had a base with 14, and then kind of lost their track with 15. 16 comes out, and it looks promising pre-release, and then they kind of do what they usually do, and it released with balancing issues offline. Playing on the higher difficulties, it was essentially like watching like Man United play under Louis van Gaal right now. So shit. So backwards, sideways passing, mainly because the defensive area has improved a lot, and the FIFA pitches are small anyway. So that creates very little space for you to maneuver in and try and create good passing moves. And it's weird because the passing is actually pretty good. It's just that you can't have that kind of nice kind of flowing game of football. It's just very lethargic. And it doesn't even seem responsive. Your player almost takes a couple of touches too much at times. It was not fun to play offline. Online, at launch was fun because you're playing multiplayer, so humans will shift their defense around and you can find space. But now I've heard with patches they've kind of gone back to FIFA 15 style. So they've kind of fucked that up now as well, essentially. I mean, I haven't touched it since after release. After we reviewed it, and I haven't felt an urge to go back to it either. So that says it all.
Fair enough. And Gary, what do you reckon?
Well, before it sort of was released, I really enjoyed it. I thought, this is good fun. But it's typical EA Sports. They tinker around with things just before release, ready for release, and on the same with Asim, it was just become a sort of like a frustrating mess. Playing like the AI on the sort of higher difficulties was just like ridiculously it's no fun at all. It was just frustrating. There was no space to create. As soon as you got the ball, you was literally you was essentially just like hounded until they got the ball back. I bought it. I've probably had it for about 4 days.
You traded it in straight away.
Traded it in, because it I just didn't enjoy playing it. And a game's bad when you don't. The whole point of gaming is fun, right?
Yeah.
So if a game does that to you and makes you feel like that, I don't see the point of even trying with it. So yeah, I was really shocked how bad it was, to be honest. Because like you said, Asim, we played it
we enjoyed it a lot,
events, and
Yeah, I remember you guys were sort of trapped in that EA booth for fucking ages playing it.
we had so much fun with it. But typical EA Sports. I hate to say it, but they do it every single year. They tinker too much, and in the end, it just becomes what it is, basically.
They've got a lot to do next, for next year.
Oh, massive! Yeah.
Cool. And as I said, the other one on that list was the Order 1886.
Another game I reviewed, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, it didn't make it wasn't my choice for the most disappointing game. We'll come on to that one, but like a couple of people brought it up, and I think the best description. People that brought it up, Charles and Nico brought it up. Essentially, Nico, I think, probably described what I was trying to find in terms of my wording for it. It's essentially Derek Zoolander. It's really ridiculously good looking, but there's not too much else going on.
Yeah,
and I think that's probably the fairest assumption fairest description of the Order that I've seen. It is a stunning looking game.
Yeah,
it is.
I think one of the biggest complaints that I maybe had with it was where we got to play it at E3 a couple of years ago. E3 2013, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And when we played it, it was 2014. When we got to play it, it was like, you know what, this looks pretty good. There's a decent action section. There's the shooting mechanics feel good, and it's nice and seems like it's well paced.
They picked out the best section,
but they very obviously picked out like the most action packed section of the whole game. So
it was very generic. That's what I said in my review. But I didn't. I think I scored it a 7 or a 7.5. I can't remember now. But I didn't put it as my disappointing game because, to be honest, I wasn't expecting great things from it.
No.
I was expecting a decent, solid shooter. Nothing, above the norm. I marked it down mainly because there was that stuff obviously as well, because it was really short as well at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was one of the main reasons why I marked it down, in terms of like, if you're going to recommend a package at £40, because it came out at full price. There was no budget release. It came out at full price. That's why I gave it that score. It's not a terrible shooter, like a shooter or like a cover-based shooter or whatever. It's just that it doesn't do anything out of the ordinary.
There's not a lot to it, to be honest. Is there? But I played it and I didn't have a massive issue with it personally. I quite enjoyed the story, but I can understand why people would have an issue with it because of just sort of there isn't a lot to it really.
I think the key points of contention were basically that it's leading up to something, and then you get to these battles and they're basically just QTEs. And that was disappointing. And it kind of finished, and there was like little post-credit stuff as well, that I guess if you want to call it that, which kind of hints at something bigger coming up. I do hope they do something with like a sequel. I'm not sure what they're going to call it, the Order 1887. I don't know. But I do hope they do something with it. It's not my disappointing game, but I can understand why it would be people's disappointing game.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, and then sort of running down the rest of the list. Gary, you've said that Telltale's Game of Thrones was your most disappointing game.
Yeah. Like The Walking Dead was amazing. I think I've talked about this in a previous podcast, but I really loved The Walking Dead. There's others that I've really enjoyed. Wolf Among Us was fantastic, and I know Tales from the Borderland is getting great reviews. But I loved Game of Thrones, the TV show. I absolutely love it. But for me, the game, Telltale's version of it just didn't grab me. I just didn't care about the characters, to be honest, in this. And again, I've talked about this in previous podcasts. The engine is it feels like I'm playing something from about 30 years ago. It's one of the worst engines I've ever experienced, I think.
It's creaking.
Yeah, if they don't change that engine soon, then
I don't have the urge to play it now. I've kind of got halfway through the episodes, like episode 3 I finished up. I don't really have the urge to play it.
Yeah, it's very dull. It gets better, like later on, but it still didn't make me go like like The Walking Dead. There was sections of that towards the end where you're
it's
like,
incredible.
wow,
Yeah.
oh my god. But this just didn't. It just didn't sit with me. I can see people loving this because like some people just love everything Game of Thrones, but me personally, yeah, I think it's their weakest one yet.
Yeah, I mean, I reviewed it. I gave it overall. I gave it an 8. I think it finished very strongly, and that that sense of like being in the show was quite prominent throughout. But obviously, it wasn't. I can understand why you put it in there because it wasn't the strongest. And as you say, like the technical problems that were there, they were to the detriment of the game. So I can totally see why it would be in there. I mean, I didn't find it as disappointing as as others did because I again as Asim said, like with the Order, I knew it wasn't going to be this massive like extended canon of Game of Thrones, and it wasn't going to be like this. It wasn't going to be this huge piece that suddenly found this missing piece of a puzzle. And I actually said in the review, I couldn't understand at the end of it why I was finding myself caring about these characters.
Yeah, that's really it. I don't give a shit about any of the characters in the game.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is,
exactly.
I found myself starting to care about them. I just couldn't figure out why. It was really strange.
Fair enough.
But yeah, anyway. My most disappointing game, I finally got some hands-on time with Tony Hawk's 5.
Oh dear.
Brutal.
And that
I didn't
says
play that, so that wasn't in my list.
that says it all, to be honest. Tony Hawk, where the fuck did it go wrong? They could have made that game great. They could have ploughed money into it, but it just seems like it's a cash grab to keep the license. And it's terrible. Like it handles really badly. It just
looks terrible.
It looks like a 20-year-old game.
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting that they put it out, and I'm so disappointed with it.
It's going. Well, I'm saying it's going cheap. It's going for like £17 now, but
It's about £15 too much.
£15 too much. Yeah, I was gonna say.
And a slightly controversial one, Asim, you've put
Not
Fallout 4.
controversial. Fuck you all, alright? Fallout 4 was my disappointing game of the year. And I think when you read the text when we have our feature up, I actually preceded this by saying I didn't actually have huge expectations of it, even though I enjoyed Fallout 3. I enjoyed Fallout 3 to the extent that I got all the bloody achievements on it. I played it a lot, right? But this game, it came out and so much hype. They're like, oh, we're gonna, the shooting is gonna be great. Real time shooting is gonna be great, and it's gonna look great. This and that. The engine's fucking creaking like, I don't know, like a fat guy, on a stool or something. I don't know. It's just fucking. It's got technical issues all over the shop. Even though they're trying to fix them now. I guess fair play, but I can only judge what I played after release. Technical issues all over the shop. The game looks like it belongs on the last generation. I'm sorry, but I've been playing Yakuza 5, and that probably looks better. And that's a PS3 game.
Wow.
So that says it all. And the fact that they've moved on to a new engine, which is getting them ready for their PS4 release, whereas Bethesda have stuck with their old engine with the many issues it has, is baffling to me. And they get away with it because it's Bethesda and because it's Fallout. And no game should get that free pass. No game.
Nah.
And the fact that moving on to the real time shooting, it's horrendous. It's horrendous. And the fact that you're going to play the majority of the game like that is, it baffles me that people can get on with that. It's just mind boggling. And people come to me and say, oh, but it's an RPG. But its core mechanic, is still the combat. You know what I mean? And I mean, the most exciting thing about it that I found when I put like 5-6 hours into it was the building of settlements, and even that was kind of a half-assed thing. It's probably the best thing about the game, but you only have like one view to create it. Like there's no top-down view to like create stuff or anything like that. And the fact that the technical issues, I can't get over that. It's just like your companion is disappearing, and it's just randomly turning up, sometime halfway through the game again. It's like, okay. And then conversations like disappearing. That's disappointing. I just got bored after a while. I mean, it was between that or Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and probably, to be fair, I enjoyed Assassin's Creed Syndicate more than Fallout 4. So yeah, fuck you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Fair enough.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think the thing is where with the disappointing game stuff, it's like that is one where like there was a huge amount of hype for it. And I think you were obviously hyped because you played Fallout 3 and absolutely loved it. And I think the fact that it hasn't been this like world changing, landscape, the genre defining.
I wasn't even expecting that. I was just expecting something a bit better, just an increment, improvement on Fallout 3. You'd expect that at least.
Yeah.
They've used the same engine for the last few games now.
Yeah.
Since Fallout 3, really, let's be honest.
Well, I mean, that's the thing where that comes into play where there's some things with Fallout 4 where, like the hacking stuff, there's a piece, there's a few things online where, if you get the question, you put it in online into one of these generators for Fallout 3, it gives you the correct answer for Fallout 4. So it's like they've clearly just reused massive chunks of the engine and massive chunks.
That says it all. That says it all.
So it's,
and yet, if it was any other company. If that was Ubisoft, they'd get absolutely slaughtered for that. If that was Konami, they would get absolutely slaughtered for that. But because it's Bethesda, because it's a loved series, it's cool. Sorry, I'm going on a rant here, but yeah.
No, that's fine, and that's one of the things. So, right. So the other games.
Get so much hate for that, aren't
I? Well, fuck them. The other thing that the other 3 games that have made the list, or 4 games, sorry, are no, there are 3. We've got. Just Dance 2016. Deb put that in here. She said that essentially.
I was really disappointed about that as well.
And basically, she sort of essentially said that it's time to call the franchise and just leave it where it is and just maybe release DLC or something like that. Okay. From what I understand, it's not my type of game. Given my
come on, Ben.
Come
on, Ben.
Mate,
come on, Ben.
I've got.
Ben, we know why you don't like it, mate. It's because it ain't got enough Usher.
Well, yeah, man. I've when some people have got a 6-pack, I've essentially got a barrel. It's one of those things. And the other a couple of other games, Andy gave the honourable or dishonourable mention to Project Cars. I know he was really disappointed with that when he came to review it. I think he just said that the handling didn't feel right, and there was just so much about it that just didn't sit well with him, and I can see it. He's lent me the copy, and I've had a few races on it, and it does seem something's lacking, and I don't know what it is, but
they're trying to make it too simulation. That's the trouble.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
And and the handling side of it is awful. It's like a shopping trolley on an ice rink. It's not good.
It's not as bad as Watch Dogs handling, though. And finally, last upon the list is Robin's pick, which was Black Ops 3. He essentially said that it looked like it was shaping up to be the most interesting in years and just felt like all the others and didn't really do anything next gen. I would probably say if he was talking about the single player, I'd agree with him.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, I think he's probably jumped into the multiplayer bit as well from what we've established, but again, all opinions are valid. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's, I know me and you have talked about it, and in terms of being a Call of Duty, it's definitely the best Call of Duty that there's been in terms of the multiplayer. We feel for a long time. But I mean, really, they're the choices that we've been given by everybody. And as I say, the questionable honour goes to FIFA 16 and the Order 1886 as our joint most disappointing games of the year.